Hey guys, so in this section, we're going to talk about more on targeting and what's called audience deduping. Deduping, if you have not ever heard of it, it essentially just means when you're in the bid and the auction process, when you're deduping your audience, that kind of means that you're pretty much like your audiences are competing against one another, and it can create um, a problem with your bid cycle. It could cause your ads not to run, or it could cause you to be spending more than you should be. So here's how you address the audience uh, when you're creating your ads. So remember that Facebook puts you into an auction process. So when you create an ad, essentially what you're doing is you're bidding, you're vying for the space, for the real estate space, for your potential prospects to see your ad. So in that sense, let's say that you had two ad sets running at the same time, and the ads are potentially we're trying to avoid that deduping scenario where one ad conflicts with the other. So remember that your ad sets are Facebook determines your ads based on the bid, the expected action that your prospect is supposed to take, and also your relevant score, which is, as we discussed, how relevant is your ad to the user that you are potentially bidding for. So let's say, for instance, that ad set one wanted to um, advertise to an audience 18 to 21 who was interested in Pokemon Go, that lived in Canada, and audience number two wanted to do 18 to 24 that lived in tennis or the US. Basically, these are kind of just rough estimates, but essentially what we don't want to happen that we're vying is where we vie for the same space when there's too many similarities between the audiences, that it causes conflict between the ad sets and the bids when you go to run them. Okay, so in a second we're going to take a look at. I'm going to So again, you don't want two ad sets that are running similar audiences to be vying for the same space, because it will create a conflict as you try to, and these ad sets will actually be essentially competing with one another. And that's what you don't want to happen when you are running your ads to specific audiences. So signs of ad conflict, or deduping as we would call it, first off, Facebook is trying to recognize this, and it's basically trying to help you. So what will happen is the impact, you might have like a stalled campaign, or you might have expensive results when you're running your ads. The cost of your ads will be significantly more expensive than they would, and that's because Facebook is actually trying to uh, lower your cost per spend, your spending cost. But if it's encountering a deduping situation, it could cause either a campaign to stall entirely, or you just have very expensive results, and you might not get the results that you're even looking for because you have too much conflict in your ad. Um, the best practice for to avoid audience deduping is to have an overlap of your ads, typically no more than 13%. Um, you can also do, sometimes Facebook will allow it different ad placements that do not compete with one another. So for instance, you could have a similar audience, custom audience that you have created, but let's say you wanted to run one ad set on mobile and the other on desktop. So Facebook at times will allow you to differentiate these two ads so that they do not conflict with one another. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm actually going to go into the back side of Business Manager so that you can see a sample of what audience or deduping should look like, and what you want to try to avoid with overlap. So we're in the backside of Business Manager right now of Facebook, and I have several audiences here that I've created for the ads that I run, and I wanted to show you how you can look at um, audiences that potentially can overlap. So let's say I wanted to run an ad, I look at custom audience for Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay, what I want to do is come over here to actions. I'm going to look at the show audience overlap. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose another audience that I have. Let's say I want to do, we'll do Gary Vaynerchuk and social media examiner, and we'll compare the two audiences. Okay, so in this instance, we see Gary Vaynerchuk, US, and Social Examiner. Gary Vaynerchuk has an audience of about 20 million people. Social Examiner has an audience of about 10 million people, 9.9. We see that we have an overlap segue here of about 20% between the two audiences, which isn't bad. So ideally you want to aim for 13%, but at least the lower percentage rate is ideal the way you want to go, so that you don't have that overlap between the two audiences. So pretty much that's what you're looking for, as low as you can possibly get it. That way your audiences won't conflict with one another, and Facebook will not give you those problems. So looking ahead again to also, once you create a business manager account, when we get into that, to get to this section, you would go to your assets library, look at all tools, and there you have it, audiences, and it will take you right here to this section.